Okay, so now we'll study virtual memory. We look at following aspects. First, let's in general look at word virtualization or virtual. What is virtual? And this word you will come across very often. Okay, and then we'll look at some aspects of virtual memories. Today we'll just look at motivation. Why do we need virtual memory? And what is virtual memory? So we'll look at some aspects of that. In the next three classes, we'll try to cover the more, we'll go more into detail of virtual memory. Okay. All right. So so far we have covered about cache memory. And then we have looked at this memory hierarchy. Now this memory hierarchy will again come across in virtual memory. Okay. We'll focus largely on these two levels now. These basically main memory and secondary memory. We'll not this one. We will not look at this. We'll look at these two: main memory and secondary memory. All right. Cache, we have gone into big detail. We have looked at it how cache really helps us, etc. Right. So, all right. So now let's look into what is virtualization. You have come across these terminologies, right? You have virtual reality, you have virtual memory, virtual machine, virtual LAN, or VLAN, right? You must have studied this in networking course, or you will study when you come to layer 2. And then there's something called VPN, which you all of you are using to connect to institute net from outside. Okay, then there is something called server virtualization, like you would have most of you are using VMs, virtual machines. There's something called link virtualization in networking. Okay, if you study software defined networking, SDN, etc., then you will come across this term called link virtualization. Then there's something called platform virtualization, resource virtualization, and then we have virtual desktop, right? You don't need desktops today in offices. You can have virtual desktops, right? So these virtual words come very often, right? Virtual memory is very common, right? So we'll very often used, right? So we'll study today virtual memory concept. So what is the word virtual? This word virtual, what is it?
Something which is made by software.
Oh, very right. Which is made by software, but what? I mean, every program is consists of software. So basically, you're right. I mean, using the software, you get the characteristics of that particular thing, right? So virtualization is the process of creating software-based or virtual representation of something. Okay, so when we create a machine, virtual machine, then actually using the actual hardware resources and software, we build on top of that instances of that machine. Okay, using software. All right. So virtualization is a process of creating software-based or virtual representation of something such as virtual applications, servers, storage, and networks. So basically, when you are making a request for a resource, so that request is intercepted and presented a different view of the resource being presented, right? So that's how we do, right? When we use, all right. So basically, when somebody is making request, that request intercepted and presented something. It means there must be some mechanism of translation or representation. All right. And why do you need all these virtual things? Why do you need VMs, for example? Because all of you are using VMs.
So like the flexibility, like it's much
Yeah,
easier.
Yeah, you need flexibility. You need what else? You increase the utilization of resources. You can create, uh, VMs of different types, for example. Okay, and so on, right? You can, for example, create your Linux based machine or Windows based machines or whatever, right? So you can create on top of, say, for example, a Linux machine. Also, it allows us, for example, what do you call the movability, right? I'm not getting the right word. Or if something you're running on a VM and something happens, then you can store the VM in a file and move it on to different machine in different place. Okay, so the migration of VMs is very simple. So these are the advantages by virtualization. Okay, now the question is that why do we need to virtualize memory? What is it that we want out of it? What we have seen in a pipeline, data path pipeline, we have instruction memory, which now we have studied cache, instruction cache, data cache. We are reading from instructions from memory, which is cache memory or connected to different levels of memory. And then pipeline is executing, and finally we are storing in cache. Why do you need to something more than this? Anyone? Okay,
To
so
increase capacity.
increase capacity, yes. Capacity of RAM and cache is the same. Cache, whatever machine you have, the capacity is the same, right? So, but you are right in some sense, right? I mean, see what we have assumed so far. We have assumed there is only one process running into the data path, right? As long as there is just one, you are sure that computer uses only one program or dedicated for one program. At that time, there can't be many other programs which may run concurrently. Life is fine. In fact, in embedded processor, for example, you have embedded processor for the refrigerator, and it's just doing one simple task, only one task, then it may not need virtual memory. Okay, all right. So we'll come to more things, right? More about it. So this is the system that we use. We have assumed so far, right? We have CPU, and that's connected to main memory. Of course, I mean, we right now let's avoid discussing cache memory, because for a processor, whether you're using cache or it has multiple level cache or main memory, it doesn't matter to processor. It issues only physical address. Okay, now there is a this is the case in case of embedded microcontroller, etc., right? So it's connected to main memory and it gets whatever it wants, right? And so on. Or it can write whatever it wants to write. It's simple. Life is very simple. Okay, but that's not the way desktop or mobile work, because in mobile at any time there are hundreds of processes running, right? So it works well. And in fact, in the beginning, most or even big machines use this kind of memory architecture. Okay, there is one single memory and is connected to CPU, is the one program that's running. What about when we run multiple programs or multi-programming that we'll study, right? So OS run multiple applications simultaneously. So what happens when you run simultaneously multiple processor and only one data path? And one data path, of course, can run one process or one program. What it does is that it context switches, right? It removes one process and loads another and runs that, right? That's called context switching. Okay, and of course we do scheduling for that. So that's one thing that in institute of running one process, we are running multiple processes. So it's something like this. So we have process A and process B. There can be many more processes. For simplicity, we assumed only two processes. It uses RAM, okay, and it loads RAM. Okay. So basically, this process, which is nothing but program and data, has to be there. So it gets some area into the RAM. Okay, and then it context switches to process B. Okay, then process B is loaded here. All right. Now, do you think that this should happen?
No,
Yeah.
sir.
What is the problem here?
To process A, then we will have lost all the.
Yeah, process is lost. Okay, so this is not desirable, right? So, and what happens is that then actually process B can actually access contents of process A. So it's not desirable thing, right? So what happens then? We can what we can do is in the following way, that we have process B allowed only to access process B's area, and similarly process C is allowed to access only process C's area. Okay, so in this way we can run multiple, we can have multiple processes loaded into memory, but that is also not that is easy to do, right? For example, now we have process B goes off, so this area is available. Okay, and process D is little bigger in size, so this can be brought in, but there is a space available at the bottom. So it means that now we cannot load process D until we do something. So what we can do is that we move process C on top and load process D. But now process C should not be allowed to access what it was accessing earlier. So this space it was accessing here, right? Process C was accessing this area in memory. Now we have moved it here. Now it should not be allowed what it was accessing earlier. It should be allowed only to access this area. Okay, and somebody has to do that. All right. So what we also, so this shows that while there can be multiple processes in memory, but protection is required. Okay, so any application now, if protection is not there, can overwrite any other application memory. So we need to, right? And then there is the, why do we think that a process may want only this space? A process may want a space which is more than main memory. Okay, it can be a very big process. Then what do we do? Do we say that my process size has to be smaller than main memory size? No, right? So we need to do something about it. Okay, solution is that create virtual memory. Give each process the illusion of full memory address space that it has completely for itself. So now we know the address space, right? We'll come to that later, right? Address space for each process for 32-bit machine will be 2 raised power 32 in size, right? It means that each process thinks that I can use complete address space. Now 2 raised power 32 is the size of the address space which a program can use, but memory can be smaller than that. Do you think that all RAMs are going to be 2 raised power 32 size? May not be. It was not there in the beginning also. All right. So That's one constraint that we see. Okay. However, by virtual memory, each process should be allowed to use its address space. Then it must get right. It must think that I am the only process accessing the memory, and I don't have to share it with anyone. So it should think that I have access to full RAM. In fact, more than RAM also, right? Okay. So this is the illusion that each program that you write has. While the fact is that there are maybe hundreds of such programs. So this is the virtual world we are giving to process. Okay. So in fact, there can be many, and these are all sharing space in main memory and also in disk. All right. And this we have seen. Now, what is difference here is that when we study cache, we looked only at these levels, but now we focus on these levels, basically these two levels. And the disk is nothing but extension of, sorry, tape is extension of disk, so we don't worry about it. We'll focus largely on virtual memory level at this level. Okay. Note here one more difference we see while we transfer blocks here, and between register and cache we transfer words, while between memory and disk we transfer pages, and between disk and tape etc we transfer files. Okay, so we'll come to what page is in next few minutes. Okay, all right, so now let's come to address space. Okay, now each process for a processor, say a processor of 32-bit, it can access 2 raised power 32 locations, right? So we call this as virtual address space. This corresponds to each process. Okay, so this is between 0 and n minus 1, where capital N is nothing but 2 raised power n. These are set of addresses that user program knows about. It means that user program can access any of these locations. Okay, and can also be part of these locations. Okay, so n-bit address space is a virtual address space with so many addresses. So modern systems typically support 32-bit of 64-bit virtual address space. So we have considered in RISC-V 32-bit address space, but most of our processors nowadays have 64-bit virtual address space. It means that your program can be of length 2 raised power 32 or 2 raised power 64. Okay, so that's the virtual address space that's accessible. But physical address space is what are the spaces available in the memory, main memory, right? When we say memory here, we talk of main memory. We don't talk of cache here. The cache is generally subset of this. Okay, so now the address space is 2 raised power m, which is actually physical address or actual address in memory. Okay, now what is this user? Okay, these physical addresses are hidden from applications. When you write program, you don't worry about what is the memory size, right? You leave it to OS or memory manager to handle that. All right, now there are multiple processes and process in the system, right? Process 1, process 2 up to process n, maybe 100, maybe 1000, and each has this address space available. We have seen this address space, right? And we have studied this. It has a code area, then a static area, heap area, a stack area, and so on. And the address node, that each has address from 00 to the highest address, right? FFFF. Okay, now each address, when you're running program, it will use these addresses, virtual addresses. The code here is going to use these addresses, one of these addresses. Second program is also going to use this, and so on. But ultimately your physical memory is between 0 and m minus 1. Okay, it means that these need to be mapped onto actual physical memory. without even user knowing it or without even processor knowing it. Okay, so we have this view. Okay, all right, so this is what each program thinks when it's running into a processor. Okay, and actually it's given part of this. Okay, so these virtual addresses need to be translated into physical addresses. That's the role of memory manager, without anybody else knowing about it, right? So processor will continue to, okay, when we access something from PC, program counter, it will continue to access these virtual addresses. But these virtual addresses need to be translated into actual reality, which is physical addresses. Okay. All right. So role of this manager is to map virtual to physical addresses. Okay. So this was our pipeline. Right. Of course, you can see it slightly differently here, but it's essentially the same what we studied. Okay, and we have used we are looking at the caches here, and caches are connected to main memory, assuming that there is only one level cache and then main memory. Okay, and PC is issuing physical address. But you know, when each process is going to have its own address space and you have written program using that, then this model will not work, right? Then it will use a logical address, or one in, you know, whatever is available to you in the address space. And then there has to be a converter or translator, okay, that based on something, it will based on, you know, in some parameters, it will create a physical address. And similarly here, okay, when you write into data area, the program will say write into some logical address which has to be converted into actual physical address. Okay, so it's something like this. Address generated by each instruction in a program is a virtual address. Okay, it is not the physical address. So address translation mechanism maps this address into physical address. So it is this diagram. The program operates in virtual address space, but the real life is that we have physical memory. So there has to be some mapping function which will convert virtual address into physical address. Okay. All right. So one way of doing this is that we now bring in the concept of paged memory. Okay. And today, see, there used to be two ways of creating this virtual memory. First was segment. Possibly you will read about it in OS course. And second is page or paging memory, page memory. We'll study only page memory. Okay. All right. So what we do is that we break, you know, physical memory into fixed size pages. You know, in cache we use our blocks. Here we use something called pages. Sometimes we use word frames also. And this typical size is 4 kilobytes. 4 kilobyte. Okay. And the RAM, so this is RAM for example, is an integer multiple of pages. So it's basically, you know, if it's a 4 KB, it's nothing but multiple of this. Right? And processors, as you know, use virtual address. So now virtual address also, so we have said physical address is divided into pages. Similarly, virtual address we can divide into pages. Okay. All right. So we can have this kind of thing, the virtual page number and offset. So your processor are using 32-bit virtual address. Okay. And then we split this into two parts. First is called virtual page number and second is called offset. Within that page, what is offset? So here we can make out, right? What is the page size? Is the 12 bits. So 2 raised power 12 is basically 4 kilobytes. So each page is of 4 kilobytes, hence we need 12 bits to read any byte within that. Okay, all right. So now we have split the RAM into pages as we have shown here, and process A thinks that I am the only owner of this. I am the only process accessing memory. All right. So this illusion is there, but we have split this into pages. Okay. So, but actually what happens is that process B also thinks that. Okay. And physical memory now is shared among process A and process B pages. Okay. So these are the pink ones are pages for process A and blue ones are pages for process B, and you can see numbers here 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, this is 5 and this is 6 and so on. All right. So now but each program can access one or more pages. Pages don't have to be contiguous. Now nobody says that the processes, all pages for processes has to be contiguous, right? There can be, it can mix with some pages for some other processes. Okay. All right. Okay, it's done transparently. So program has nothing to do with it. Program doesn't say that my pages have to be contiguous or at some places, right? But we need to continue to provide protection. All right. So now what we can do is that, so per program maintain a list of pages in physical memory that they own, right? And then have a table that will do translation of virtual address to physical address. So it's something like this. Okay. When process B is running, it may be using say this page, the page number 6, actually it should come here. Okay. And then we'll have this table. Each process will have a table. Okay. So now process is using, for example, page 0, 1, 2. Okay. In physical memory, it's using page 2, then page 3, this is page 4, this page 5, this page 6. Okay. All right. And then virtual memory. Okay. So it's something like this. Process B is using in virtual memory. See, because address space is huge, it will not be using whole address space, maybe using sparsely, right? So it may be using this page here and the page here and then page here. So page 0, page 3 and page 7 it is using in virtual address space, and this can be mapped to certain pages here. Okay, and this mapping will come here. For example, okay, so virtual page number 0, this is page number 0, is mapped to virtual page number physical page number 2. So this is mapped to 2. Then page number 3, virtual page number 3 is mapped to page number 6 here. Okay, and then page number 7, this is 7, is mapped to page number 4. And these are all valid bit. We make it valid. All right. So now we have this table filled in for process B. All right, and make all other as invalid bits. It means that for virtual page number 1, okay, of this process B, there's nothing. There's no physical page number. It means that there's no mapping available. All right. So now in this way, the process, this is page table of process B. Similarly, we can have page table for process A. Let's assume process A has pages, here. So the page table here will contain these mappings from its own virtual memory pages, like similar to here, two corresponding physical memory pages, right? So the similar table will exist for that. All right. So now with modern system, virtual memory system, it gives illusion of large, private, and uniform space. It provides protection, and it provides demand paging. It means that its ability to run multiple programs larger than main primary memory and bring the pages from secondary memory. Now we have not studied so far secondary memory, but secondary memory is also split into pages, that is a disk, etc., and bring those pages that are needed to main memory whenever needed. That's called demand paging. Okay, we'll study that later. Okay, and however, there is a cost of that, which is nothing but this translation is extra. That happens, right? Conversion of virtual address to physical address, but this should happen at very fast speed. Okay, so the goals of virtual memory is that use memory efficiently. It means that main memory or physical memory now can be shared with large number of programs, and each program can think that it has whole address space available. It can use whole address space, right? And it simplifies memory management. Now we can have multiple tables corresponding to each process and make sure that a physical page is not shared among multiple processes until unless it is desired. Okay, so we can provide some kind of protection. If it's not to be shared, then we can say that process we cannot use certain number of pages which are occupied by some other process, right? So it can isolate now address spaces. So one process cannot interfere with others memory and so on. All right, so that's all for today. So virtual memory gives us illusion of infinite capacity. A subset of virtual pages are located in physical memory. Not whole virtual address space or pages in virtual space need to be available in physical memory. We will use only that are needed at that point in time, and actually locality of memory references helps here. Okay, similar to what it has helped in cache. We don't need to bring everything from processes address space into main memory. Okay, we need whatever is needed, so we can bring certain number of pages load into main memory. Okay? So there's a concept of page table that maps virtual addresses to physical addresses. This is called address translation. Okay, and then we will have different page table for different processes or different programs. Okay, and that provides memory protection. All right, so that's all. Any question?
Sir, in the next lecture, could you repeat the part like after paged memory, because I think it went a bit fast.
Okay, so which one? Pages, right?
Yes, paged memory, and after that.
Okay,
This
so
part.
this one, right? Okay.
Yes.
Okay, all right. So basically, idea is that we need to bring from secondary memory something that is needed to be brought, that is needed for execution. Okay, secondary memory is of very large capacity, right? It can be of terabytes. Okay, now in that we can have full address space if required. Okay, and we can, but physical memory is of limited size, so we need to bring in whatever is needed. Now we will bring in only a block of memory that we call it page. So we are going to bring it from secondary memory to main memory, something that are needed. Okay, it means that for each process the address space corresponding to that process or program, the address space exists in secondary memory. Bring it to main memory if it is required. In this way we can have a table which maps what is there in physical memory corresponding to virtual address space, and in fact that is one-to-one mapped onto secondary memory. All right, so now with the table we have for each process as a table which which has a mapping between what virtual pages it's using and the mapping to physical pages, right? And now we'll see that how the protection is provided such that the pages which are used by some processes in physical memory cannot be used by cannot be mapped by other process, right? It means that process we can provide some kind of protection, and physical memory can be shared among number of programs, right? All right, because each program has illusion of full address space, and since we are converting the memory into pages, some pages can correspond to process A, some can correspond to process B. All right, now we will bring in concept of secondary memory, then the concept becomes much clear. All right.
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right, any other question? All right, then thank you very much. See you on Tuesday. All right. Please go through the slide sets. Okay, and then when we study then how we are going to map secondary memory also, then it becomes much clear. All right, just think of this thing as that each process requires full address space. Okay, and then because it has illusion of full address space, and this address space we chop into, or we create pages, virtual pages. Okay, and then pages can be mapped onto physical memory. Okay, when we say virtual pages are mapped, it means that these pages must exist somewhere, and they exist primarily in the secondary memory. From that, whatever is needed is brought into main memory, and not everything that is in the secondary memory need to be brought into main memory. So main memory can be shared among number of processes using a translation table, address translation table. And in this way, each process thinks that has a full address space, while effectively they have full address space contents available in secondary memory, but in physical memory it's only something that is really required is there. And without even knowing process, if something is not there and there is a need, then it has brought in from secondary memory to main memory. All right, that's the concept. And this happens all transparently to user and also transparently to the data path. Like data path doesn't know whether cache exists or not. Similarly, data path will not know whether secondary memory exists or not. All right. Okay. All right. Thank you. Have a nice weekend.